those of you guys that came in late, we're going to hear from Fleurish Farms and the combination of how they've leveraged Grownetics and what they're doing right now.
Yeah, so at Fleurish Farms, we really wanted to address the problem of energy use and resource consumption for indoor agriculture. The amount of energy consumed for indoor agriculture is a staggering number. And compared to any other industry, it dwarfs any other industry. So really there's three main modalities or types of growing. You know, full sun outdoor, we see much less use of electricity, but the water usage on those outdoor plants is much higher. The greenhouse, considered the most promising in terms of the future of cannabis cultivation, because a really good greenhouse with great tech, with some the Grownetics tech included, as well as with someone very experienced in managing greenhouses, they can reduce their water and electrical demands pretty significantly. With indoor, we have less water usage, but the electrical usage, as I am mentioning, is through the roof. So is there a disruptive way, a disruptive technology to reduce that impact of indoor cultivation? And we'd like to introduce that today with the concept of DSS SunGrown Indoor. This is something that we've been working on for the last 2 years. And I wanted to start by saying the DSS stands for Dynamic Supplemental Sunlight. So what the hell does that actually mean? We're going to look at a time lapse here. Inside this sun-grown indoor cultivation room, you're looking at it right now with no artificial lights on at all. So you're just seeing the patterns of natural sun come through the space. And you can see that the light just dances along the plant canopy. That's really the dynamic aspect that we're talking about. So these plants are not exposed to very high levels of PAR. That level moves through the space and it can penetrate down and hit the fan leaves all throughout the space. So that is really what we mean by the dynamic nature of sun-grown indoor. We have the demonstration unit out on the floor, and come talk to any of us about it if you have more questions. But this is what they look like on top of the cultivation shed. So you can see that we have 4 of the collectors up there, and that is what captures the sunlight and drives it inside. There's 3 main components. The collector allows us to capture low-angle light, and so from the morning and the afternoon as the sun's setting, no matter where the sun is in the sky, we're capturing the most available light that we have. We're then transferring that down with a trademarked and patented material called Spectralite Infinity. This was developed by a company called Solotube out of San Diego, and what it provides is 99.7% specular reflectivity. What that means is every time light or photons hit this reflective surface, instead of being lost to diffusion, they're actually tunneled and funneled down. So down inside of the room, we have a full fingerprint, or the best available PAR to any plant from the natural sunlight inside of our sun-grown room. We transfer, and then we're able to control this with a dimmer, an automated dimmer. This allows us to make the whole room light deck capable. And Fleurish Farms is now locked up and become the exclusive distribution partner for the indoor agriculture market in North America for these Solotube products. When I was mentioning that 99.7% spectral reflectivity, I wanted to just show this preliminary data. You know, I put this slide deck together, and it was probably 100 slides, and I had all these data and all these graphs with the help of Grownetics. You know, we're drowning in the amount of data that we have, but I just wanted to get the highlights real quick. Plants respond to PAR, which is high blue and high in the far reds here. This is the actual PAR distribution map that's inside of our room underneath the tube. So it's actually mimicking, almost identical to what we do if we just go outside. So this is the highest quality spectrum available with the natural sunlight. You can see the most common high pressure sodium. That's the spectral response that plants are being grown under now most commonly. You know, they're completely lacking in the blues and the far reds. We think that this is you know, a horrible waste of power for not very good light spectrum. We use Helio Spectra LEDs inside of our room. So essentially what we're doing is fueling plant growth with natural sunlight and driving that with LEDs. So you can see the plants underneath the light in some of these rooms. They really just love that light. This is where the Grownetics part comes in. So we have 25 sensors in every room. Every component, we measure its power load. We're really focusing on energy consumption and light. So these are the sun tubes, the tubular daylighting devices. You can see that we have PAR sensors on every end, and then in the central part here, we have 4 PAR sensors. This allows us to capture what those PAR values are as it moves, as that light moves through the space. It's highly granular, so almost every second we're capturing data from all 25 sensors, as well as measuring the power load component. So this is an enormous amount of data, almost 100,000 data points logged per day. So for the results, what sort of power levels are we seeing? So as I mentioned, it's dynamic. With the help of the Grownetics system, we're actually able to measure that. So we have power meters on all four corners. Basically, the numbers are coming out to show that on average, outside of the hot spot in there, we're between 300 and 600 par, so this ambient par throughout the whole space. And then the brightest spot, that peaks goes from 900 to 1300 par is where the peaks are. So that are the type of par levels that's moving through the space of the plants. Really, our goals were to establish baseline photosynthetic activity, achieve 450 to 550 levels of par. That's really what you need. After that, the amount of photosynthetic activity that you're getting sort of diminishes. It sort of peaks off and levels off. You can change that by increasing the CO2 in the room as well as the temperature. But we're very happy that we were able to at least achieve these par levels coming through the tube before we have done this research, if that wasn't really demonstrated. This was also, I should mention, in Sonoma County during August and October is when these data points were collected. Of course, your location and the relationship of the sun and the sky affects those numbers coming through. So I wanted to just provide some more time lapses of the plants moving through the space. This is just a day by day, and you can see really good utilization of the square footage there in terms of the amount of canopy and the canopy formation. It's another time lapse over the course of several days during the flowering period. So when we first started, are plants even going to grow underneath these things? The answer first initially was yes. And now these performance metrics are coming through, and we really think that the final signature of the kindness here is in this trike formation, the trike morphology. So you can see that all our heads are pretty spherical. We have pretty dense packing here. This is a Skywalker OG at day 65. We're about to actually start cutting those down pretty soon. The silver mango. The trike formation is just beautiful there all throughout. Then we wanted to compare, okay, so if we're growing indoor, SunGrown Indoor, if we're growing outdoor, how does it affect the cannabinoids and the terpene ratios? So what we've seen is that SunGrown Indoor mimics the gains that you see in full sun outdoor in both cannabinoids and terpenes. It's known by especially the lab techs, but the growers as well, that growing plants outside, you're going to get a more complex cannabinoid and terpene profile. You're also going to get slight elevations compared to just an HPS indoor grow. So we are actually able to match those gains that are afforded to the full sun outdoor growers in an environment that doesn't expose the plants to those harsh elements of wind, rain, wild fluctuations in temperature and humidity. In terms of performance metrics, we have our first harvest coming down, so we were able to hit 26 grams per square foot, almost 1 gram per watt when it comes to the total watts of the entire system. When we look at just the LED light watts, we're almost approaching 2 grams per watt. The next harvest, in the next 14 days, we're going to bring those down. I think we're approaching, in these grows, now that we've learned and optimized slightly, 30 to 35 grams per square foot, and then approaching 2 to 3 grams per watt when we're just looking at the light watt. So this would just be the incidental use of the LEDs, based on how powerful we need to turn the LEDs up and how long they need to stay on for. And that's all dynamically linked through the Grownetics system. We measure the par on the outside. Dips from cloud cover or rain result in an automatic and relative increase in the LEDs inside of the system. So we think that we can sustain commercial production levels of indoor cannabis cultivation with an 80% reduction in their energy demand. That's a significant reduction in the cost of goods sold. In terms of water use, our net water use for an 8-week flowering period of 24 plants was 60 gallons. 82% of the water that was used was reclaimed from the HVAC or the dehumidifier in that space. So it ended up being about 9 gallons of water per plant. The best management practices from Americans for Safe Access suggest that that's 160 gallons per plant. That would be a 96% reduction in the amount of water that the plant needs to sustain growth. So what does that mean for commercial growers out there? What's the cost savings we're actually looking at here? In a 2,500 square foot space, if I was to build that out with 150 HPS lights and 1,000 watt 100 HPS lights, the annual electrical demand or load is going to be around 700,000 kilowatts per year. With the DSS and LED option, we bring that electrical demand per year to around 90,000 kilowatts. That's about 620,000 kilowatts saved per year, or about $125,000 annually saved through the use of implementing or reducing the light demand.
Really, What footprint were you using for the math on the HPS setup for 2,500 square foot room?
I was just doing it divided by 16 to think about how many you need. About 150, 156 basically. So one of them per 4x4.
4x4 is the footprint you're using per light?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're effectively, and in the 100 square foot that we've actually had, this is like a theoretical model, and the 100 square foot that we've actually done compared to HPS, we've seen 80% reduction. So anywhere from 60 to 80, 85% reduction in the annual electrical demand. So you can drop your cost of goods without negatively affecting your yield or the quality of your plants. Moving forward, how does this work? So what's our relationship? How do we approach growers? How are we helping them reduce their impact? We do custom retrofits, so if you already have a building, we can help you out and get the tubes into your footprint. We're in the process of designing a 1,000 square foot canopy space commercial unit over there. It's going to be around $300,000. And then a 100 square foot residential shed, that would be if people want to grow in their backyard once OMA passes to get the 6 plants legally that they're entitled to. As we work with growers, basically the process starts with we need to know a little bit about you, we need to know about where you're at, and we need to know a little bit about how your operation works. From there, we do a preliminary analysis to determine the feasibility of this project in your location. How much, what percentage of the year can you rely on the tubes alone for supporting plant growth, and for what percentage of the 24-hour cycle can you during veg or flower? After the preliminary analysis, we'll move to a system design and financing, so we'll start actually doing individual PAR maps at like 2, 4, and 6 feet, so you'll know exactly what that ambient cloud of PAR looks like, and we'll start applying for energy and utility rebates. Energy companies have money to give to growers to use more efficient technologies. They're already offering them for people who switch over to LEDs. We think that we can get probably 30 to 50% of the cost of building or paying for one of these systems paid for by the energy companies, and that's what we're pursuing now. So the ROI, if you were just to switch your HPS grow over to LED lights alone, it's about a 4 times faster ROI. We're significantly dropping the cost of goods sold for the growers, and in this regulated market, you know, the growers aren't really used to paying taxes, or a 30% effective tax rate is something that's getting thrown around in California. You know, the only way to get that money back in the grower's pocket is to reduce their cost of goods sold. So that's really what we're here to help out with. But I think there's also, when we're performing this research, broader impacts. What are the impacts of this outside of the cannabis industry? You know, if the surface of the planet continues to heat, as we've seen record-breaking year after record-breaking year after record-breaking year, we think that there's going to be some real value in understanding how to grow crops underneath these tubes, how to capture the sun and move it into a more desirable and suitable environment. So we think that potentially using these sun tubes to grow crops in a situation underground, if the surface continues to heat, it would be worthwhile. So I was hoping to demonstrate to you guys that DSS SunGrown Indoor is a disruptive use of new technology in the cannabis industry. We're able to significantly reduce the electrical demands, and through the use of Grownetics, we're also able to significantly reduce the range at which the temperatures, the humidity, the CO2 levels fluctuate with the help of the automated system there. I just wanted to throw up a little bit about our team over at the Fleurish Farms up in Sonoma County, and you know, we're of course happy to answer any questions about this. Yep.
This works better when there's a lot of sun, but there's some places where it really won't work, there's not enough sun.
So they've had success in Minnesota. We run the models up in Washington where it's typically cloudy. This is a cloudy day at Sonoma. So the amount of light that comes through on a cloudy day is actually pretty impressive. It's not, you know, you're not getting 1,000 PAR at that point, but you're still able to supplement plant growth. And then by turning up the LEDs, this is typically this is a normal day. So at 7 a.m. the LEDs come on, they go off at 11. The plants are just being grown on the tubes alone for the majority of the day. They kick back up in the afternoon. On a rainy day, we just keep the LEDs up high, but we're still below the benchmark of what 4,000 watt HPSs would be.
Yeah. So you went with Helio Spectra. Is that exclusive? Are they going to work on other projects, or?
We're working with them. You know, the attraction for us. One second. With Helio Spectra was the ability to have networked controllable LEDs, so we can dim them, but we can also individually control the light spectrum. Our next project with them is getting the research units, where we have now 9 spectral controls, relating that along with Grownetics to say, how can we push CBG synthesis higher? How can we put THC higher? Or how can we understand the exact role of UVB or UVA in cannabinoid synthesis and production? Because we have a fresh environment with the baseline of the sun, taking out the IR and the UV, we can then selectively add those back in and see how that affects cannabinoid terpene production. So we're moving forward with Helio Spectra. There's not sort of an exclusive relationship. If you were to, if you had your own room and you wanted to know, I use black dog LED. We can work with the grower to implement and use that in the system.
Eli, would you do me a favor and maybe talk about some of the information that would, the interaction between the two companies? Obviously, all this stuff that happened didn't just happen on day one, show up in California and plug it in and play. As you're testing out new models and theories, and as I know intimately with Grownetics that you're constantly innovating, I think it might be beneficial to, how does a garden and Grownetics work together? And I'd like to hear about that from both of you guys.
Yeah, no, I was really happy when I connected with Dr. Cachat and Josh, two PhD researchers, because we were trying to position our system as the most innovative, most technologically advanced. And we didn't have the background that Dr. Cachat does and Josh does, two PhD researchers who have done this type of research very intensively. What our system does is it gives them the tools essentially to do any sort of research they want, to sub-segment any sort of data, whether that's par data, humidity, and to see that data, see where it fluctuates. So really, the most important thing when starting a company is to talk to your users. And Dr. Cachat is just a prime example of someone really pushing the boundaries, trying to be innovative, and just to work day-by-day basis to see what problems they're having with the systems and to reiterate and to fix it was very valuable.
Yeah, and I think that we didn't give Grownetics a very simple install task. We said we've got 3 of these separated 100 square foot sheds. They all need to be situated with the Grownetics system. By the way, there's no internet up there, no hardline internet, it's only over satellite. You got to use cell phone services, spotty at best. So the ability for them to come out with a completely customized solution that's able to be connected, that still allows us to check it on our cell phones no matter where we are, was huge. One of the other things that we like about the Grownetics system is inside of the dashboard, so inside of the dashboard that the growers are going in to log to every day, there's a chat window. So we can just get direct access to the Grownetics team to say, hey, this sensor looks like it didn't restart last night. Can you see anything on your end? Can we flip that back on? Massaging the data as well. So there's still calculations churning in the cloud right now, trying to get average, energy usage at between the hours of 6 and 7 a.m., over 3 months. So the ability to work with both them and their expertise in system design and working with cloud servers and stuff has also been great. Yeah.
They also have an awesome farm with a bunch of goats you have to avoid, but not fit. So to really, if anything were to happen, like electricity would go out all across the country, they're this spot to be at.
The other cool thing is, hey Eli, I just found a really good light radio spectrogram meter. We want to get it integrated in the Grownetics system. Instead of him being like, oh, this is logistical nightmare, new hardware, it's like, that's awesome, let's do it, plug it in, and we'll see if we can take it from there. Yep.
Has this system been implemented at all with an HBS setup?
So yeah, in our first grow, they're using some sort of HPS for the flower room. I think they're using LEDs in the beds as well. But yeah, our Grownetics system has been in our first customer, which you saw the 60% operational cost decrease. They're using standard HPS lights.
What size of a grow is that?
It's a 6,000 square foot grow. It's exclusively wholesale, and they have top quality product.
6,000 flowering?
6,000 square feet. I forget the plant count. I have to go back up there. But it's exclusively for wholesale, and we have this testimonial and I know the numbers that have come back for tested quality. It's very high quality, top of the line, and he's a grower who likes to keep out of the main light, I'd say. So it's called the Flower Collective, and they're our first customer. Yeah.
Eli, what's the payback time typically on the Grownetics?
Yeah. So we have all these numbers back, and we've been very happy to release them because we know we're making great claims and we want to back it up scientifically. So what we just did is we commissioned the University of Colorado's lead school business team to look at our first customer's facility and see the breakdown of really what part of that 60% was energy usage and what part of that was actually labor costs and what part was resources, and actually to compare it to the biggest companies out there in the world. So we're taking a very scientific approach about it, using a great research team with great credentials. But our first customer, it paid us $120,000 and is easily going to save $500,000 in his first year.
So a 3-month payback?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this, well, I guess I said it publicly. I'm waiting for the results to come from the University of Colorado to really validate that. But when you take in all the different factors, whether that be labor costs, energy usage, resources, and then if you combine it with technologies like Fleurish Farms is creating, just when you add all those components together, the decrease in operational costs is really staggering. So really by solving the problem from the ground up, how do we optimize the facility is how we went about it. And when you're doing little changes here and little changes here, the results can be very impressive.
I mentioned the fact that we have an enormous amount of data, but that's a good problem to have. I mean, in order to do the research that we wanted to do by measuring par values like instantaneously every minute of the day, before it would take one handheld guy with like a tape measure, moving it down, but then by the time he's done, it's 1:30 to 3 now, and it's all changed. I mean, I don't even know if we could calculate the amount of time and energy and then frustration we saved by just the ability to collect and log these data points on our own.